Hello everyone. So today we will be discussing about the Little Red Book of China, which was published from 1964 to about 1976. It is a book of political and cultural statements based on the speeches, writings, and thoughts of the Chinese Communist leader Chairman Mao Zedong. He was the Chinese revolutionary leader who, after leading a long armed struggle, helped found the People's Republic of China in 1949. Chapter 1 of this book is titled as The Communist Party. In this chapter, the book will focuses on the role of significance of the Communist Party in leading the country. And in this chapter, Mao asserts that the Communist Party represents the working class and leads the country towards socialism and communism. He had a firm belief that without the party's leadership, China would not have achieved independence. Secondly, discipline and unity are the two major principles within the party, which means that all kinds of debates and discussions are allowed, but once a decision is made, everybody must follow it. Thirdly, in this chapter, Mao introduces the idea of the mass line, which means that the party leader should listen to the people and must understand their needs in order to serve the majority. He had a firm belief that the party must continue the revolutionary struggle to prevent capitalist influences and it must ensure that socialism is defended at any cost. Now, the chapter 2 of the Little Red Book is titled as Classes and the Class Struggle. In this chapter, Mao Zedong emphasizes the importance of class struggle in revolutionary movements and the role of proletariat in overthrowing oppressive ruling classes. Mao argues that class struggle is a fundamental force shaping society. He asserts that the ruling class, such as landowners, oppresses the working class, like peasants, and revolution is necessary to overthrow this oppression. But the struggle does not end with the overthrow of capitalism or feudalism. It continues even after a socialist state is established. So Mao warns against counter revolutionaries and elements trying to regain power. He asserts that the Communist Party must lead the working class in the struggle against oppression. Leaders must remain vigilant and continue ideological education to prevent revisionism. The term revisionism means a shift away from communist principles. Mao insists on correctly identifying and targeting the enemies of the revolution, including reactionary elements within the state. He emphasizes that even within socialist societies, class enemies persist. This chapter justified campaigns like the Cultural Revolution, where he sought to eliminate class enemies within China. It reinforced the idea that struggle is a continuous process, often leading to radical policies and internal purges within the Communist Party. Now, the chapter third of the Little Red Book is titled as Socialism and Communism. And in chapter 3, we will discuss about the transition from socialism to communism and the necessity of continuous revolutionary struggle to achieve a classless society. Mao describes socialism as an essential step towards communism. While socialism abolishes private ownership of major industries, remnants of capitalism still exist, requiring ongoing struggle even after a socialist state established. Class struggle does not end. Mao warns against complacency and emphasizes the need to fight against revisionists. The term revisionist means those who soften communist ideology or introduce capitalist elements. The working class, led by the Communist Party, must maintain control to prevent counter revolutionary forces from regaining power. This justifies strict political control and campaigns against perceived enemies of socialism. The people must remain actively engaged in the revolutionary processes. Mao encourages self reliance in economic development rather than dependence on foreign powers. The final objective is a classless, stateless society where the government withers away. However, this requires long term struggle, and socialism must be defended against internal and external threats of capitalism. This chapter provided ideological justification for policies like the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, where Mao sought to accelerate China's path to communism. It reinforced the idea that struggle is necessary even within a socialist state is formed. Now, moving on to chapter 4, which focuses on the correct handling of contradictions among the people. This chapter discusses Mao Zedong's view on contradiction within socialist society and how they should be addressed. Mao differentiates between contradictions among the people and contradictions between people and the enemy. The first are internal differences within societies, such as differing opinions on policies, while the other involves external or class enemies who threaten socialism. And according to him, internal contradiction should be resolved through debate, persuasion, and democracy rather than force. The Communist Party must listen to the people and correct mistakes through self criticism. However, such criticism must serve unity and not disrupt the overall stability of the state. And unlike contradictions with enemies, which may require suppression, contradictions among the people should be done on the basis of education, reformer, rather than coercion. He advocates for a balance between allowing freedom of thought and maintaining discipline within a socialist system. Mao's ideas in this chapter emphasize that in a socialist society, differences should be handled with tolerance, education, and constructive criticism rather than suppression violence. This principle was meant to distinguish socialism from authoritarianism while maintaining the party control. Now, the chapter 6 is titled as Imperialism and All the Reactionaries Are Paper Typers. In this chapter, Mao Zedong expresses his view that although imperialist forces, such as the United States and other Western powers, and reactionary forces, like domestic counter revolutionaries, appear strong, but they are actually weak in the long run. Mao calls imperialists and reactionaries as paper tigers, meaning they seem powerful but are ultimately weak because they lack support. He argues that their power is temporary and will collapse under the weight of people's struggle. Secondly, the real strength lies with the masses, especially the workers and the peasants, who, when united, can overthrow oppressive regimes. Mao believes that history is on the side of revolutionaries. He cites examples where seemingly invincible forces, like the colonial rulers, were defeated by people's movement. He uses China's own revolution as proof that perseverance leads to victory. He urges revolutionaries not to be intimidated by imperialist threats, including nuclear weapons. And he insists that the world's oppressed nations and classes will eventually triumph over capitalism and imperialism. This chapter reflects Mao's confidence in communism's eventual global success. It was used to motivate revolutionary movements worldwide, especially in anti colonial struggles. His ideas that reactionary forces are fundamentally weak became a key principle in Chinese Communist Party ideology. Now, moving on to chapter 7, which is all about democracy in the three main fields. And in this chapter, Mao discusses the need for democracy within three key areas. Firstly, democracy within the Communist Party. Mao emphasizes that within the party, members should have the freedom to express their opinions and engage in constructive criticism. However, once a decision is made, all members must unite to implement it. The principle of democratic centralism. Second, democracy among the people. He argues that the general public should have the right to discuss and criticize government policies. The party should listen to the masses and ensure that governance aligns with the people's need. And thirdly, and the last element of democracy, according to Mao, is democracy in the military. Mao advocates for political, education, and democratic participation within the army. Soldiers should not only follow orders but also be politically aware and engaged in discussions to strengthen their ideological commitments. Overall, this chapter reinforces Mao's belief that democracy should function within a socialist framework where open discussion is allowed but ultimately serves the collective goal of the party and the state. Now, the chapter 8 is titled as The Mass Line. And in this chapter, Mao Zedong emphasizes the importance of the Communist Party maintaining a close connection with the masses. His central idea is that leadership should be rooted in the experiences, struggles, and the need for people. Now, first, from the masses to the masses. Mao explains that leadership should begin by understanding the thoughts and concerns of the people, refining them into policies, and then returning to the people with improved guidance. Second, is the trust in the masses. He stresses that the people are the true driving force of history and that the party must trust their collective wisdom and energy to bring about revolution and progress. Third is avoiding bureaucracy and detachment. Mao warns against leaders becoming isolated from the people. He criticizes officials who make decisions without consulting the masses and insists that genuine leadership comes from being deeply embedded in the society. Now, lastly, the fourth point, the political education and mobilization. He encourages the party to educate the masses about socialist ideology while also learning from their real life struggles. The goal is to create policies that reflect the people's needs and aspirations. Overall, this chapter is a cornerstone of Maoist thought, reinforcing the idea that revolutionary movements and governance must always be deeply connected to the working class and peasantry. It was a guiding principle for mass campaigns like the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. Now, the chapter 9 is titled as The Political Work, which focuses on the role of political education and ideological conscientiousness in revolution and governance. Mao Zedong emphasizes that political work is essential in all areas of society, including the military, the government, and among the masses. First, the primacy of politics is that Mao argues that politics should guide all aspects of life, including military strategy, economic planning, and cultural development. He insists that ideological commitment is more important than technical expertise or military strength. Secondly, the political work in the army. The People's Liberation Army, PLA, should not just be fighting force but also an instrument of political education. Soldiers must understand the cause they are fighting for, and political officers should ensure that revolutionary ideology is instilled in them. Thirdly, is the political education among the masses. The Communist Party must constantly educate the people on the socialist ideology, class struggle, and the importance of collective action. Without proper political work, and the masses may become disillusioned or influenced by reactionary forces, and that the leaders must be politically committed and deeply connected to the people. They should lead by example, practice self criticism, and remain accountable to the masses. Fifth is the mobilization and unity. Mao stresses that political work is necessary to mobilize people in a large scale for socialist campaigns. Whether in war, economic planning, or cultural transformation, strong political work ensures that people remain united and motivated. Thus, this chapter highlights Mao's belief that political conscientiousness is the key to maintaining revolutionary momentum. It reinforces his idea that ideological discipline is as important as economic development. Now we will discuss the chapter 10 of the book, which is titled as Relations Between Officers and Men. In this chapter, Mao Zedong emphasizes the importance of unity and mutual respect within the military, particularly between officers and soldiers. His goal is to create a strong, disciplined, and politically concise army that operates on socialist principles rather than traditional hierarchical structures. Mutual respect and unity. He insists that officers should not see themselves as superior to soldiers. Instead, they should work alongside them, share hardships, and foster a sense of collective struggle. This breaks away from the traditional military hierarchy where officers command without regard for the well being of their troops. Political education in the army. The army is not just a fighting force, but also a political institution. Officers must educate soldiers in Marxist Leninist principles, ensuring that they understand the political reasons behind their military actions. Thirdly, we have democratic spirit in the military. Mao promotes a more democratic approach to leadership within the army. While discipline is necessary, officers should listen to soldiers, accept their criticism, and encourage active participation in decision making. And lastly, serving the people. The military must not only fight wars but also assist civilians in labor and development projects. This ensures that soldiers remain connected to the masses and reinforces the idea that the army exists to serve the people, not just the state. This chapter reflects Mao's broader philosophy of integrating the military with the people and ensuring that the army remains ideologically committed to socialism. These ideas were put into practice in the People's Liberation Army (PLA), where officers were expected to live and work under the same conditions as their troops, creating a strong sense of unity and discipline within. Now, moving on to chapter 11, which is titled Relations Between the Army and the People. In this chapter, He emphasizes the need for a strong cooperative relationship between the military and the civilian population. He argues that the army should not be an isolated force but should integrate with and serve the people of the nation. The army is the people's army. Mao insists that the military should not act as a separate oppressive force but should be a true people's army that fights for the interests of the working class and peasantry. Soldiers should always remember that they exist to protect and serve the people. Secondly, winning the support of the masses. The success of the army depends on the relationship with the people. If soldiers treat civilians with respect, help them in their daily lives, and avoid mistreatment, the masses will support the military. This support is essential for revolutionary success. Third, serving the peoples beyond warfare. Mao believes that soldiers should not only fight in wars, but also help with agricultural work, infrastructure projects, and disaster reliefs. This strengthens the bond between the military and the army, and the civilians ensure that the army remains rooted in the socialist values. Lastly, opposition to military oppression. Mao warns against armies that abuse their power, exploit civilians, or act as a privileged class. He contrasts the People's Liberation Army with imperialist and reactionary forces, arguing that a revolutionary army must remain humble and dedicated to the people. Therefore, this chapter reflects Mao's vision of a revolutionary military that is deeply embedded in society rather than acting as a separate ruling force. These principles were key to the success of the communist movement of China, especially during the Chinese Civil War when the PLA gained strong support from rural peasants by treating them with respect and assisting them in their struggles. So, in this video, we discussed chapter 1 to chapter 11 of the Little Red Book. Thank you so much.